Hello, guys and gals, me Mutahar, and you know that Discord hack we talked about a few days ago? Well, ladies and gentlemen, to give you an idea, Discord back then said a small number of government ID images, your driver's licenses, your passports, the two pieces of documents that you're supposed to keep pretty safe and private. Yeah, now every service is kind of going to start requiring that you give those pieces of ID over to prove that you're over the age of 18, because remember, we gotta protect the children against any form of internet naughtiness, even though that all of these checks and balances have really targeted a lot of platforms like Discord, like Xbox, like Imgur, for instance, that now all of a sudden are going dark in entire countries all over the world because of insane laws like this. Now, how does this situation get worse? Well, apparently, according to the people that have hacked such a service, have hacked Discord, a confirmed leak of people's IDs, now they've apparently said that they've got 1.5 terabytes of age verification photos, including those IDs, ladies and gentlemen. Around 2.1 million images are now being used to extort Discord, the actual service, for money. So your IDs are being threatened and blackmailed, and Discord, if they don't pay up, these hackers might just decide to release and leak this information. So since this whole thing went down, we went from a small amount of people to 70,000 users that had their government IDs exposed, which again, they reiterate is through the vendor they used. Now granted, I agree, it's probably a small amount of people in comparison to the overall Discord pool, but guys, 70,000 people who had to appeal because Discord system said that they were underage had their information exposed. Like, this was a problem that happened, I wouldn't even say necessarily just because of Discord. It's a problem that happened because of the age verification laws that are happening. This was the bad, nightmare that everyone was talking about that's happening so quickly. Now, at some point, you can see that the hacker got a little annoyed because Discord was being blackmailed and they weren't paying, which is obviously the thing you're supposed to do. You do not negotiate or pay out these ransoms because that just encourages it to happen more. But obviously, it ain't that easy because a lot of people's personal information is out there. So for instance, this user was sharing a data sample and he said the longer that Discord does not reply, the more will be released. But one thing that Discord failed to disclose was that payment info did include card expiration date. So you've got a card type, the last four, and you've also got an expiry. And of course, this also impacts users who made any kind of ticket, not just ones about billing, which is wild. So of course you can see that the sample of data that they provided showcased again location, showed how long they had Discord Premium until, and of course, they also had phone numbers, which thankfully I assume that, we're actually like censored out here. But to go further in, one thing that also was scary was this user, they showed an example of what was their, information, their ID verification. And one of them showed this health card, which I don't know if it's an accepted form of ID verification, but again, it's still something you don't want out there. And of course, the further people went in, the more these hackers apparently released what appeared to be Tyler Robinson, who was the Charlie Kirk shooter, and some, messages related to it, especially, of course, with the Discord communication. So yeah, there are a lot of information is coming out, and it keeps getting wilder. Now, for me, I've been kind of looking around even the dark web for data breach forums, everything, that a little dark web monitoring that people often talk about. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to completely 100% confirm this, but I also don't 100% disbelieve what I'm seeing over here. This was actually shared by our friends over at VX Underground. This is something that's kind of gaining a little bit of traction. But ultimately, I think the implication is pretty goddamn clear, okay? This is going to be the first of many times your driver's licenses and passports are going to be leaking out for the fucking world to goddamn consume, right? Especially for hackers to take a hold of, use against you in things like identity theft and so on and so forth. So yeah, big congratulations. Thank you to the government overlords and the politicians that don't even know how to fucking turn on a computer in most cases, are now deciding how the internet basically functions and are deciding how we prove to people that we're over the age of 18. Now, before some fucking idiot comes into the comment section and goes, "But Muna, we have to protect the children from naughty things on the internet." Look, I agree with you. There's a lot of ways to protect children from the internet. None of them are actually perfect. But if you think that giving up your identification to a lot of these services is good, well, let me remind you, Discord is one of the biggest online communication platforms in the world. And the way they got hacked was the hackers actually targeted a third-party support network they worked with called Zendesk and breached them and got access to this information. So it wasn't really that Discord themselves got hacked, it was the actual people that they worked with. So again, in order to assume that you give your private information around, that company you gave your private information to can easily be sharing it with other parties, and assuming that there is one weak link in the chain, which there usually is, then yeah, it doesn't matter, okay? You're getting hacked, and unfortunately in many cases, it seems as if Discord has sneakily, thanks to our friend Louis Rossman, who kind of saw and shared a little link that interested me. For instance, on the Discord app, apparently some users saw a terms of service and policy update. So they announced updates to their policies in August, which is kind of convenient given the timing, right? Remember, this breach wasn't discovered in the last day or two. They saw this about 2 weeks ago. So again, these are things that Discord, alongside many other companies, are kind of adding to their system, where they updated the forced arbitration clause that they introduced back in March of 2024. So it's not exactly 100% new. But the idea here is that they gave users an option to kind of opt out of this forced arbitration, meaning you could, again, take, from what I understand, Discord you to a court legally. Now, the thing about it is, you might be like, okay, well, if the user gives up their right, then what's the problem? So here's the issue that surrounds this, right? Now, obviously, you could just delete your account, but here's a concern that I have. In order to access this, you would technically have to agree to Discord's almost forced arbitration based on at least my assessment and view of this, and then delete your account. So, you know, in my opinion, it should be illegal for any organization to force you to sign something, you know, without giving you the option right there and then, hey, can I just delete my account right there? Like, why are you forcing me into not being able to join a class action lawsuit, especially considering Discord is just coming off the cusp of a pretty bad security leak that even they could have avoided, right? Like, at the end of the day, if we live in a world where it's okay to store our most personal information, but then not punish the companies or even the government accountable for it, what the fuck? So basically the issue here is that even if you wanted to take a company like Discord to court legally, because ultimately if you're giving them your fucking passport and that shit gets leaked out for the world to grab, putting you in financial jeopardy, putting you in the fucking headache of identity theft, well, because of the way that these companies operate, you basically are just forced to give up your rights. Imagine, right? Like, you, whenever you make an account with somebody, you basically agree to a terms of service, right? Now, is it okay for any company to just change that fucking terms of service whenever they feel like, and basically force you to accept that? Or otherwise, you can kick rocks and they can possibly even take away the service that you signed up for. You know, it's actually pretty eerily similar to a lawsuit that's actually occurring right now. There's a YouTuber by the name of Kian Brosh who is actually taking Minecraft into a class action lawsuit. And from what I understand, one of the main things about it is the constant changing of the terms and condition, right? So again, according to some of these companies like Minecraft, Mojang, and basically Microsoft by ultimate extension, it's up to you to occasionally check back to see if guidelines have changed. It's to a point where, you know, content creators like Peanut Butter Gamer, you know, have even said that they don't own games like Minecraft, even though they already bought it, because they didn't merge their Mojang account into a Microsoft account. They might be like, but Muda, it's his fucking fault for letting that happen. And I would almost agree with you if it wasn't for the fact that when you sign up for service, are you supposed to remember every single fucking purchase, every single contract down to the nitty gritty? No, that's fucking insane, okay? That's wrong. But yeah, that's kind of effectively the issue at hand here. Should any company be allowed to magically take away your ownership of any product if they deem it's possible? Should they basically put you at gunpoint? No, you used to be able to buy something at the fucking store. You used to be able to get anything and then basically own it, right? As long as a physical copy was usually owned by you, it didn't really matter if the company updated or patched the product. You didn't have to download the patch, but you could still retain your software. Now, obviously, things are a little bit different for services like Discord, but I think it's really shitty when a hack happens and people's really personal information gets leaked out, and all of a sudden, fucking the only recourse that you have to protecting yourself gets yoinked out from underneath you. Now, one of the things, and the reason for me making this video too, is that I see this problem kind of ahead of time. I'm not considering myself Nostradamus. That's a very pretentious thing to do. But, as somebody that, deals with software on a day-to-day basis, one of the things that recently happened was Windows 11 actually ended up having a situation where Microsoft took away every bit of known mechanisms to use Windows 11 with a local account during the out-of-box experience. Now, ultimately, that means whenever you install Windows 10 and you actually install it onto your system, you do have to actually use a real Microsoft account that you make with MS. Meaning that you do, ladies and gentlemen, need an internet connection to activate your operating system. Even if you don't want to ever touch a Microsoft service, let's say you don't give a shit about Teams, Office, Xbox Game Pass, any of Microsoft's services, you just need an operating system to run your programs and use the hardware that you put together. Yes, you need an internet connection and, you need to be connected to Microsoft, meaning you're exposing yourself to their services, their AIs, their telemetry, whether you like it or not. Now, you might be like, but Muda, why is this that big of an issue? You have the internet all the time, especially when you're installing an operating system in 99.9% of the cases. Why are you so adamant against creating a Microsoft account? And I'll tell you why that is. First off, you don't need to have an online connection to fucking use your computer. Even if you go to Apple and purchase a new MacBook, you don't need to come home and make an iCloud account. You literally can just make a local Mac account and use that laptop you purchased for, in cases, thousands of dollars without ever fucking needing Apple servers or Apple's iCloud systems. You can install Linux on your system and never ever have to connect to any associated service. In fact, if anything, Linux might be, and Mac by extension, might be the last few operating systems, the last mainstream places, now that Windows has taken this route where you can just install your OS, make a local account, and never have to touch the internet. Okay, what a novel concept. Imagine if you didn't have the internet. Imagine if something went wrong at Microsoft servers. Microsoft has locked you out from basic functionality, all in the hopes that they can keep lauding you into their services. Now, the other issue here, and again, this is where I can see the forest, right, the entirety of the situation. In a lot of cases for Microsoft, you need age verification, and they are kind of taking your IDs for services like Xbox. Now, in Xbox's case, it's true. That is a social media platform, and underneath current laws and regulations in parts of the world, they need to be taking your ID. But how far do we go to the point where eventually even Microsoft Windows may require that you need some form of identification? I mean, with laws this broad, imagine having to fork over a driver's license, an AI, analyzing selfie, or a passport just to use the fucking operating system on your own personal computer. That, ladies and gentlemen, is fucking insanity to me, and it needs to be countered right here, right now. Because if you think that Discord, for as large as they are, the partner they worked with caused them an issue, caused this leak. Imagine if a leak happened on Microsoft's end, God forbid. Imagine the amount of personal information floating there that ends up getting fucking leaked out. That is the future that I want to avoid. And that's one of the reasons why I'm making this video, because ultimately, it's not that this hack alone is the one to get bad. This is just the start of a much larger set of problems that are going to happen to all of us, months, years from now. And that's something that I feel like if you can turn the tide right now, okay, a lot of fucking headaches get avoided going into the fucking future. And just in general, if you are somebody that says it's okay to require an ID or an internet connection or a fucking account with a service you may or may not use to use a piece of software on your local system, you are an actual cuckold, okay? And there's just no reach in you. You know, I miss the days when you could just go and purchase a disc copy of Microsoft Windows. I shit you not. Like back in the day, you could just buy a copy of Windows Vista or Windows XP or really anything like pre-Windows 10, maybe even Windows 10. But of course, ultimately, you just got this product key and then you put this into your system and you called it a day. Okay, simple as that. It used to be that motherfucking easy back in the day. Now everything has to be a service, and not only everything has to be a service, but it has to be connected to the internet. It has to be connected to laws and regulations that now demand our fucking IDs in every single way. And ultimately, it also requires that we agree to these company terms and conditions that we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't be forced into it, okay? We should never have a gun to our head telling us, sign your rights away or you lose access to what you already have, what you agreed to before. You know, this is the world where we live in, where we have to sign away the rights. So even though ultimately at the end of the day the hack affects you the most, you can't even fucking sue the company in 99.9% of the cases. That's how fucking insane it is. You know, ladies and gentlemen, the law is already stacked against you, especially, you know, in places where money basically dictates who wins and who doesn't. But now they're taking away even the chance, the small modicum of chance to fucking fight back. So I know we started off with Discord and talking about their hack and we kind of jumped all the way here. But ultimately, look, the Discord hack has happened and there's nothing you can do to unring that bell. But going in forward, there's going to be a lot more platforms that are much more used, much more needed in your day-to-day life. You know, I would say that Microsoft, Google, Apple in some cases, a lot of these platforms that you use your hardware with on a day-to-day basis, like, I mean, for most people, they probably will never have to touch Discord. My parents, they don't know fucking shit about Discord, but they know about Microsoft. They have Microsoft accounts, they have Apple accounts, they even have Google accounts. Because sometimes people need to use a service that is so vastly important in our day-to-day life. And if those guys are harvesting our information and sharing it around willy-nilly and that stuff gets hacked and there's no recourse, what are we doing? What's even happening? But yeah, it was interesting to see that apparently millions of IDs are now sitting in a blackmail chamber. And I guess, you know, Discord, probably advisable not to pay these digital terrorists. But at the same time, world we live in, man, the deck being so stacked against you. Ladies and gentlemen, just wanted to tell you about this. I wanted to kind of warn you and just give you a bit of awareness to fight back against a changing landscape in the future. A landscape that is not good, okay? But if you can change it now, you'll forever be thankful. Your future generations will be fucking thankful if you can put down a fight right now. Ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mutahar, and if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am out.